So in 1983, I was appointed executive director of Cathedral Square Corporation. And in our building, we happened to house the retired senior volunteer program, who was the original founder and sponsor of Project Home, which became HomeShare Vermont.
So the idea was, you ask older people living alone, would you like to share housing with another older person living alone? So the first year we ended up with something like 3 or 4 matches. The first match took forever. And when it finally was arranged, we actually opened up a bottle of champagne.
I think the Thursday mornings that we spent around the table as a staff reviewing who had come into the program and what their needs were, what their expectations and hopes, that was a very, very fond memory.
When you think about 40 years, you have founders, obviously, that had a vision, that they thought of something 40 years ago that is still working today. And with that vision came hiring good leadership. I think the staff is outstanding. They're consistent, they're top quality, they're caring, and that staff is also supported by amazing volunteers.
I think that's part of the real strength of the organization is the volunteer component. They are very critical. Many of the volunteers are former professionals in the field and social workers, et cetera. They put in hundreds and hundreds of hours.
How do we happen to be thriving 40 years later?
Well, the need is still there. I mean, we all age. I've aged 40 years. And people, really often want to stay in their own homes, in their own space.
So HomeShare really addresses that that desire to remain at home, and also solves another problem at the same time, the need for affordable housing.
I think that's the strength of both where we are now and the future, how we can continue to help in this very challenging time and the crisis of housing overall.
The key phrase here is social exchange. I think the reason that the program was able to survive its early difficulties and then begin to thrive. I do something for you, you do something for me, we both benefit.
I'm particularly proud of someone who was there near the beginning to see some of the same principles that we were working from back in the 80s and 90s still at work today.
And I think that the need has just gotten ever greater, and the solutions that this has provided for participants and the peace of mind for their families is pretty darn special.
I think it's much more than just a place to live. It's much more, when it works right, it can be a truly life-saving situation.
Congratulations, HomeShare Vermont.
Congratulations to HomeShare.
Huge congratulations for 40 years. Well done.
Yay for this team.
An anniversary allows us to reflect on our history and where we have come from and acknowledge those who came before. Many of the people who helped get us started are no longer with us. People like Polly Rowe, Fred Fengler, Dorothy Black, Dot Howe, Ruth Berenbaum, George Mona, and many, many more. But over the years, we've been fortunate to find equally amazing volunteers, staff, and donors to help us grow and ensure we will be here to help the next generation of Vermonters stay at home or find a place to live. Today, HomeShare Vermont is one of the oldest and strongest home sharing programs in the country. Thank you all for helping us grow and thrive. So we are really excited tonight to be together with an in-person audience. This is our 5th storytelling event that we've done with Sue and Kevin and the band. But this is our first live show in 3 years, so it's been a long time. So thank you for being here with us, celebrating. Thanks to the marvels of technology and the Media Factory, we are live streaming this event tonight to supporters throughout Vermont and people as far away as California and Maine and Florida and Tennessee and Delaware, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Washington State, and Washington, D.C. And if I missed anyone out there, I'm sorry. I think I got almost everyone. So I'd like to take a moment to have you look in your goodie bags, and you have tonight's program in there that looks like this. Our goal for tonight was to raise $40,000 for HomeShare Vermont. And we are really, really very close. Hopefully a few tickets at the door tonight will be putting us over that number. But we really want to thank all the sponsors that are sponsoring this event tonight. They've raised over half of that $40,000 through their sponsorship, so we are very, very grateful to them. Also in your program is a timeline. And I'd like you at your leisure to take a look at that when you can. It shows how far we've come, how much we've grown, and some of the key sponsors who have helped us get here. There's also a HomeShare brochure in your goodie bag. And we're going to ask all of you to become HomeShare ambassadors. And I'd like you to find a person to give that brochure to. Maybe it's a coworker, a neighbor, a relative, a friend, someone who might be able to benefit from home sharing. So please help us spread the word about home sharing. We know there's a lot more people that could benefit from our services, and we'd love to help them. So part of tonight, we have some wonderful music, we have wonderful stories, and we have a couple videos from current home sharing participants. So we're very excited to have you see that. So we're celebrating the 40th anniversary. So 40 years is a huge accomplishment for a home sharing program. And when I think of 40 years, I think of, well, what is 40 years in my life? That's a lot of my life. But I think about that number 40. My mother had me when she was 40, not when I was 40, when she was 40. So I'm really grateful to her, miss her. 40 years ago, HomeShare Vermont started, and I graduated from UVM and decided to stay. And I love the city and I love the state. And as it happens, I took this job with HomeShare Vermont when I was 40. So I think 40 is a pretty cool number, frankly, and I'm really happy we're here celebrating it this evening. So we're ready to go. So please turn off your cell phones. And with no further ado, let's welcome the Brevity Thing.
Seen you in the sadness Give it one more day. One more day. Yeah. Just when your faith is gone. Give it one more day. I seen you when your soul shines. I seen you when your heart sings. I heard you say that the world don't owe you a thing. Sister, what did I tell you? What did I say? Yeah. Just when your faith is gone, give it one more day. Just when your faith is gone, give it one more day.
I grew up in Western Massachusetts. I grew up one of 5 kids with 2 parents, a little ranch house, 1 bathroom. That's where it all started. So one thing growing up in a little house with a bunch of siblings is trying to find space, right? Trying to find private space. So I pretty much learned every little inch and square inch of that house to, like, you know, the back of my hand. So one of the things growing up, though, is that if you ask my brothers and sisters, they'll say, oh, he's the baby, so he got to do everything. He got everything his way. In my mind, I have a very different perspective. You see, following the 4 of them and all of their escapades and all of their little tricks on my mom and stuff, I feel like my mom was on me more than anything. She was like a hawk on me. I think in her mind, she was like, this is the last one. I got to make sure this one turns out right. So with that in mind, my father is Polish, my mother is Irish and French, but she was really Irish Catholic, okay? So Catholicism was a big thing in our house. Went to church every Sunday, went to Sunday school, did all the holidays. We did all the food and everything along with it, so it was great. As a little kid, you love that, you jump into it. But as you get older, you realize there's a couple of things with the Catholic, you know, religion. Yes, you got the guilt thing, but you have the fear thing. There's that big fear factor in there, especially with my parents back in the late 70s, early 80s. And you knew that you always had someone watching you. And it's like nowadays there's some parenting where you like reward good behavior and you ignore bad behavior. Yeah, that wasn't like it back then. There was, you either did good or we have a reward for you if you're not doing good, you know? And so for me, I just questioned that all the time as I got older. I was trying to figure that out. And my mom was on first name basis with our priest, Father Dan. Little did I know as a kid, everyone's on first name basis with Father Dan. I don't think anyone really knew his last name. It was just Father Dan. But as a kid, you can't say that. But after church, if my mom was talking to Father Dan, you're like, oh no, like I don't want to be an altar boy. I don't want to go to, you know, summer church vacation, whatever, you know, camp. So as I got older, I tried to watch out for my mom. I tried to do the good thing. I tried to make sure she wasn't talking to Father Dan. But as I got older, especially as I got into middle school, I started to question it, right? And I wanted to do certain things, and there's always like, nope, nope. And I realized pretty quickly that coming out of the 70s, you have a lot of TV shows like MASH and Hogan's Heroes and a lot of references to old war stuff. And I remember this saying called fraternizing with the enemy. And in my mind, my mom thought of that as girls. So she wanted to keep me away from girls because that was going to be a problem. And so she was on me like a hawk, always. So as I became a young boy and going into high school, of course, I want to meet girls. And so I started questioning this. And one of my buddies called me up, and we just get into high school. It's a new school. I don't know what I'm doing. And I wanted to meet new people. And I'll bring up one other thing, though, from that time. There was a movie that came out that's kind of related to my whole mindset back then. And it's one of those nice, warm, fuzzy family movies. It was called Jaws. And Jaws, if you know anything about that movie, it was failing. His shark was broken, everything about it, and he rewrote the story, and he got together with his music guy. And he said, let's create something really different. You're not going to see it, but you're going to sense it. And so that whole dun-dun, dun-dun, right? That messed me up to this day. I can't swim in deep water. But one of the things with that sense is I would get that into the back of my head, that dun-dun. Whenever I thought about doing something I shouldn't be doing, and it felt like my mom was just circling, like just outside the boundary of being able to see her, right? I had a lot of things going on in this head that wasn't helping. So I go to high school, I'm meeting new people, my buddy comes up to me and he says, you know what, we got invited to a party. And I'm like, duh. And right off the bat, I go, dun-dun. I'm like, no, don't think about that. And so as I said, I was questioning things. I start turning things around in my head and I go, wait a minute, what if the big guy upstairs wants me to go to this party? What if, like, there's a new girl that I want to meet, her name is Jill Rundell. What if Jill's at the party and he wants me to meet Jill, right? Of course, I'm flipping it all around in my head. The whole time I'm hearing dun-dun, dun-dun, right? But anyway, like, and even when that dun-dun started happening, if you know that movie, when that French horn kicks in, that dun-dun-dun, and it just goes faster and faster, you know someone's going to be eaten very soon, right? So that whole music just like kind of burns into my memory banks. So anyway, I come up with a great plan, like a foolproof plan. I have a feeling some of you had this same plan. So my plan with my buddy Rob was, I was telling my mom that I was sleeping over at his house, right? Brilliant. He tells his mom he's sleeping over my house. That's it. That's the plan, right? We think no holes in this plan, right? This is the best plan ever. So we go to this party, and it's a great party. I am meeting new people. I am in with the in crowd. I am loving this. And at the end of the night, the girl that's running the party, Karen Collins, her parents are away. She kicks everyone out, but like a group of 50. And I am in the 50, right? And everyone's like, all right, finding places to sleep. People slept everywhere, under the dining room table, all the couches and chairs. You were lucky if you found a little piece of carpet. So I'm in the living room with like 12 people around me. And I'm like, this isn't going to work, but whatever. I'm trying to find a place to sleep. And this person walks in and sits down next to me. And it's that girl, Jill Rundell. And I'm like, see, I knew the big man was working with me, right? So I end up talking to this girl all night long, much to the dismay of all the 12 people in the room that were really trying to sleep. And it's about 6 a.m, and we're still talking. And we finally listen to everyone else, and we finally chill out. And we stop talking, and I'm just like, this is the best. I'm making plans with her to like go to a football game and do different things. And it's about 7 a.m. I've been up all night, and I'm just closing my eyes, and the phone rings. And back then, everyone had one phone, right? It was in the kitchen. It had that real long, dangly cord that stretched everywhere. And this phone's rang so you could hear them, right? You could be down the block and you would hear your phone ring. So everybody's waking up, everybody's groaning, and I'm laying there and I'm thinking, dun-dun, dun-dun. And I'm like, no, 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 no. And the girl next to me goes, did you just say no? And I'm like, no, I didn't say no. Nope. And so the phone keeps ringing, and finally I hear Karen Collins somewhere in her house get up, walk all the way through the house, down the stairs, around the corner, into the kitchen. She answers the phone. Everyone's quiet. And I'm like, no, what do you guys want for breakfast? Can we talk about pancakes and bacon? And everyone's like, shh, we're trying to listen to what she's talking. And so you hear her answer the phone, and she's like, uh-huh. That's all you're getting is uh-huh. And so then she puts the phone down, and you can hear her walking around the house. She's got the cord. She's stretching it out, and she's looking for someone. And I'm like, anyone? Bacon, pancakes? And sure enough, she comes around the corner and she goes, Tom Baginski, it's your mom. So that's the kind of relationship I had with my mom. She was on me. She knew I couldn't pull anything over her. So I went off to months of grounding, chores, you name it. Again, I was trying to make sure she wasn't talking to Father Dan at church. I was like, no, I don't want to be an altar boy. So after so many months of probation, I finally got back to doing the right thing. Every once in a while, I'd have some crazy thought, and I would hear the dun in the back of my head. I go, all right, keep going level, keep going straight. Well, somewhere again near the end of my high school career, I got invited to another party. And I was like, all right, I'm not playing any tricks here. I was trying to stay really good with the curfew. I was trying to get home on time. Well, I went with my buddy Mike. And my buddy Mike picked me up. We went to this party. It was in the next town over. It's like 20 minutes away. And I'm hearing the dud hunt in the back of my head. I'm like, nope, I got it. We're good. We'll be home. And so I'm at this party, and I'm having a great time. And I lose my friend Mike. And I realize at some point that I'm like, where is Mike? So I start walking around. I walk in all the rooms, and I can't find Mike. And I'm like, what's going on? And my buddy goes, hey, who are you looking for? I go, I'm looking for Mike. And he goes, oh, he left like an hour ago. And I go, what? No, wait a minute. So I buzz through the whole party, and I find the phone, right, in the kitchen with the long dangly cord. And I know Mike's number. And Mike had a cool house. He had a bedroom up in his attic, a third floor bedroom. And he had a separate line that went right into his room. It was cool technology. I didn't understand how it worked, but he had his own phone line. So I get this phone, and I dial him up. And it rings, and he's not answering. I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? And I'm like, maybe the guy got it wrong. Maybe he just left. He's not home yet. And all of a sudden he answers, and he's real groggy. And he's like, hello? And I go, Mike, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm sleeping. And I go, what? Wait a minute. I go, why aren't you at the party? And he goes, no. He goes, you were having a good time? He goes, I left hours ago. He goes, get a ride from someone else. And I'm like, no. Wait, Mike. And I'm trying to come up with all these formulas, all these answers that are just something to keep him on the line. And I pull my ace in the hole out. And I go, Mike, my mom. And so Mike also had an Irish Catholic mom. And so there was this long pause on the phone, like literally like 10 seconds. I think he's fallen back asleep. I'm ready to go, Mike, are you still there? And he goes, I'll be right there, but you owe me. So he hangs up. So now I am all excited. My ride is coming back. I'm done with the party. I go outside. I'm waiting for my ride to show up. Mike shows up, we get in the car, we're driving back home, and I come up with another brilliant plan. So this one's very different than the first one. It's a little more complicated, but I'm thinking it's going to win. So my parents live on this really long, straight street. It's about a mile long. You turn onto it down the road, and as we're coming down, I say to Mike, this is what I want you to do. Put the car in neutral. He puts the car in neutral. I said, turn the car off. Turns the car off. I said, hit the headlights. Headlights are off. He's got bucket seats in his car, very cool car. Bucket seats go all the way back. We lower the seats back. We are laying flat in the front seat of this car. He is barely looking up so he can see over the dash to make sure we're still on the road. This is my physics coming from high school at play right now. I am laying back down counting 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato. I know that if I count 7 potato, I'm about 10 houses past my parents' house. We go by like quiet as a ghost. No one could have seen this, right? So we get about 10 houses down, and we sit our seats up, and I open the passenger door, and I put one hand on the door, and I put the other arm up on the roof, and I'm hanging outside the car. We're going about 35 miles an hour. I get my feet going, right? Because where did I learn this? I learned this from Saturday morning cartoons, right? If you get running fast enough, you can keep up with this car. And so sure enough, I put my feet down, and I'm running with the car about 35, 30 miles an hour. I shut the door, and I'm looking at Mike, and I go, Mike, don't touch the brakes, and I'll see you tomorrow. He goes down the end of the road, around the corner, touches his brakes, starts his car, goes home. I am standing in the middle of my road about 10 houses down from my parents' house, and I see the objective, and I am getting into this house. I am getting into my bed. And meanwhile, in the back of my head, right, dun-dun, dun-dun, the French horns are kicking in, everything. And I'm like, no. And I'm thinking of Mission Impossible, right? Dun, 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 right? I'm running that through my head because I'm getting into this house. So I run across the street behind my neighbor's house. I have like 8 houses to go. And I run through pricker bushes, rose bushes, vegetable patches. I miss kids' toys and dog poop and you name it. And I get through these 7 yards with nothing. And I'm like, I can see the objective, but there's a big field that I have to cross to get to the row of bushes. I am approaching the objective, my parents' house, my house, from the south side. There's no windows on the south side. There's a garage here. I am taking this full-on Mission Impossible. And so I run across this field, and here comes a car, and I'm like, oh, shit. And there's a couple of rocks in the field, a couple of trees, and I'm pretending I'm a tree. And so I get fine, but halfway across the field, it's pitch black out. There's no moon out this night. And I start seeing things. I'm like, is that a person? And I'm like, no. And that dun-dun is coming into the back of my head, and I'm like, no, keep it under control. You've got it. So I go through these bushes, and I approach my house. I get onto the garage, and I come around the corner, and thankfully the garage door is open, right? And like I said earlier, I know this house. I know every square inch of this house. My mom had left the garage door open because she knew or thought I was coming home. So I get in there, and there's a little screen door. And this door is like an inch thick, little screen thing, and I know how it squeaks. And I open that door. Literally, it takes me about 2.5 minutes to open this door, all right? So I've got the door here, no squeak. I step inside, and in my mind, I shut that door before I attack the other door. But there's only about 2 inches between these two doors, so I really don't think I did that. I think I slowly did this one as I turned this one. But I turned the doorknob on this. Again, it took me about 3.5, 4 minutes to turn that doorknob all the way to the left, and I get the door open. So now I am inside. I am in the breezeway. We have a garage, a breezeway in the house. I could have just jumped on the couch in the breezeway and just called it quits. And I'm like, nope, I'm getting in that bed. So I go to the last door. It's a big, thick door. It squeaks in different ways if you run through it. I'm like, nope, going through slow. I turn that doorknob. I get that door open. I give it a little push. It's snug, right, on that foamy weather, whatever. It pops open, and I'm in. I open that door. I step in, quiet as can be. I shut the door behind me, and I turn around, all right, and it's black. It's jet black in this house, right? There's no moon out. There's nothing. And I think I see something, right? And I'm like, wow, I am so jacked up on adrenaline right now. I'm seeing a vision of a face. And I'm like, and it's just a face. There's nothing else. And I'm like looking, and I literally reach up to touch this face or to push the smoke away. And my mom slaps my hand. And she goes, Thomas Michael Baginski, do you know what time it is? And right there, that is a trick question. Do not answer that question in the middle of the night with your mom standing. And my mom was in this bathrobe and these slippers, and it all kind of blended in. So that's why I only saw her face. And I thought I was envisioning it. I thought I had conjured up this specter. And she is so mad at me. And she's like, oh my gosh, you are in such trouble. Your father's going to get involved in this. And she's like, you should go to bed right now. I don't even want to talk about this, which was good because I didn't want to say anything. And just as I started walking away, she goes, and why is Michael Daly driving by the house with his car off, his lights off, and the two of you laying in the front seat? I could barely see you. And you went 10 houses down the road, and you got out of the car, but I didn't see his brake lights. What's with that? And she's like, are you running through our neighbors' backyards? You're going to apologize to every one of those neighbors. And so my mom, like I said, was a hawk, and she was on me to this day. And my mom is no longer with me, but I still hear the dun, and I still can see her circling, just waiting for me to do something dumb. Thank you very much.
When I was a rover and a 4-week clover, I was since day was long. That you gave it to me, baby, and I can marry with a baby. I think dollars was up long. Man, we were creeping, never lost no sleep, but we couldn't catch it to the weed. Nobody was wiser, but we could have been higher and meant more money for me. It's not getting caught. Doctor Tony Gray, spin like a top, run like a villain, and the years are going by like days. Years are going by like days. Years are going by like days. School bus got on it. I was in a cat on it. Who's big gosh damn word? Homeroom class, aboard the hall pass. We would get higher than the birds. Foolish nature, the chase for the paper. I would deal in the broad daylight. 18 years old, head full of suicide, and howling at the moon all night. It's not getting caught. Doctor told me your graves. Spin like a top, run like a villain. The years are going by like days. Years are going by like days. Days. Years are going by like days. Hometown shadow, clean out of sight. Nothing to fear but coming up that morning light. Hugging and driving for that brand. Maybe could be broken, could be banned. Washing dishes, stealing kisses, making deals on the side. Said, come on, honey, cause I got gas money and we're going on a real long ride. Lying like a rug, prescription drugs, old guitars and new girlfriends. Everybody shut me out, I thought it was funny and I do it all over again. It's never getting caught. Doctor told me you're great. Spin like a top, run like a villain, and the years are going by like days. Spin like a top, run like a villain, and the years are going by like days. Years are going by like days. Days. Years are going by like days.
I'm Arthur Brooks. I play trumpet. I have a background in education. I taught at Bennington College for 23 years, Middlebury College. When my foster son left to go to college, I decided I wanted to find another place to live. And I looked into HomeShare, and we looked for maybe 2 years for the right match. And that's when I met Jean. And after about a half hour of speaking with her, I knew that there was a match, because we both had some academic background, and we had the same sensibilities. And Jean is very independent. I like that about her, because I'm the same way. She was on the school board in Lincoln. She volunteered for the library until she could no longer drive down there, the local library. She's an avid reader. She reads maybe 2 or 3 books a week. And she reads the New York Times, and we have some lively discussions. In August, it'll be 10 years. Jean's family told me that she was not going to be in a facility. And there are a lot of people her age or various circumstances who want to be in their home. And there are people like myself who need a home themselves, you know. And I think it's an excellent organization. Everyone I've met there so far is what the Navajos would call a human being.
You might be gone, but there's wine to be drunk still. Come on in. We're sitting on the back porch drinking red wine. We're drinking red wine. My good friend Gregory has picked up his arch top. It's got 5 rusty strings and 1 shiny new one. He likes it that way. I believe I know why. 'Cause when he starts to sing, he'll call the harps of the blessed. And though we don't know the words, Lord, we sure know the feel. I said we know the feel. We're all just mumbling in time. And though the fries and pepper days never gone, they got a cure for pain. May your head with wings make itself a feather bed. I hope you found what you're looking for. I hope you can rest now. 'Cause it might be gone, but there's one to be drunk still. Come on in. We're sitting on the back porch drinking red wine. We're drinking red wine. All right. Allison boys, I believe she wants to dance with me. And tonight I'll put my arms around her and never gonna let go. No, somebody tell me, why should I? 'Cause I got my wife, I've got my friends, got my family. We got a song, got some wine in the summertime. We'll sing one for you. That's right. Raise a glass or two. And though the fries and pepper days never came your way, well, I hear where you're gone, they got a cure for pain. May your head with wings make itself a feather bed. I hope you found what you're looking for. I hope you can rest now. 'Cause he might be gone, but there's one to be drunk still. Come on in. We're sitting on the back porch drinking red wine. Yeah, we're drinking red wine. We're drinking red wine. We're drinking red wine.
You know, a lot of things can be said about Catholic education, but I felt like I learned a lot in Catholic school. I learned that if you bit the host after communion, it would bleed the blood of Christ. I also learned that if you do the sign of the cross, you get 10 days off of purgatory. And I don't know if that's a big number or a small number, because I don't know how long most people spend in purgatory. But it did sort of seem to be like a bonus. So sometimes if you were a little bored, you could just do this, you know, for 10 or 15 minutes and rack up a year of time. I also learned that Sister St. Michael's Board of Discipline was actually a board that hung in her office on the wall and was used for hands and bottoms of students who were misbehaving. But one of the things that I'm still fascinated with is that I learned how to play in business attire. Because really, kids at Catholic school look ridiculous. You know, leather shoes, dress pants, white or blue shirt, tie, clip-on, of course, you know, blue blazer occasionally. And these are the clothes that you played at recess. You know, you played tag and kickball and wiffle ball, and you climbed trees, and you got in fights, and you know, hopped over fences. But I think nuns sort of thought like very dressed up recess was PE. And that's not really PE. So actually I didn't have any PE, physical education, for 12 years of Catholic school. So while I might have learned, I might have developed a great love of Jesus, I did not develop a great love of exercise. Well, you can imagine that by the time I started high school, I was sort of portly in my shape, you know, with all the non-exercise that I was doing. And I remember freshman year walking down the hallway, and I had a cousin who was a year older than me named Rooster. And Rooster passed me in the hall, and he said, "Jesus Christ, Kevin, you're fat." you should join the track team. And I've never really thought of Rooster as sort of a mentor in any way, but something struck me about his words. I don't know if it was you're fat or join the track team, but I ended up joining the track team. And he was an unusual star on the track team because he was the fastest kid on the team, but he also smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day and drank soda nonstop. So I adopted the Rooster regimen of track and started smoking and drinking Tab. Tab was my beverage of choice. And lost about 50 or 60 pounds, between freshman and sophomore year, which I guess was fine. But, when I got to college, the academics in college were much more stressful than high school. And so I had to kind of trim my regimen down. And so I just sort of got rid of the running and just kept the smoking and the Tab. It seemed to be the most efficient thing to drop. I was considered actually fairly healthy back then. Some would say I was in great shape. The times have changed so much now. It's probiotics and kombucha and gluten-free pizza. Like, we didn't have any of this stuff back then. But, I finished college, my prefrontal lobe starts to grow, the adulting process begins to occur. I sort of realized, like, Kevin, you have to change your bad habits, turn them around. I still did not have a love of exercise, as Marie Kondo would say, it does not spark joy for me to exercise. But I thought I'll turn in the cigarettes and the Tab for sneakers and a gym membership. Now, I very distinctly remember the first gym that I belonged to, and the poor woman giving me a tour at this gym. The look on her face, I think she thought, has this guy ever lived in the United States before? Because I knew no equipment. I knew none of the exercises she was talking about. There's all these classes there. My look of bewilderment was pretty solid. And there's one machine, Kevin, this is the adductor-abductor machine. This exercises both your inner and your outer thighs. I have inner and outer thighs? Yes, you do. And when you do the adductor and the abductor, you have to do them for the same amount of time because otherwise you could lose symmetry. And I said, you mean I could end up with giant inner thighs and non-existent outer thighs? And she said, yes. And I thought to myself, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this gym stuff. It seems really, really stressful and dangerous, giant inner thighs and no outer thighs. So I stayed and I started doing exercises and stuff. I didn't last long at that gym because they had this thing where trainers could yell drop and everyone in the gym had to get on the floor and do 20 minutes of abs. And you reach a certain age, you don't drop and do 20 minutes of abs for anybody. It doesn't matter who's asking. And so I left that gym and I decided to go to the YMCA. For a number of reasons. One is they had a pool, and I thought, I know how to swim already. There's no equipment involved. I don't have to worry about symmetry. So I went to the Y and started swimming. That was kind of going okay. After a couple months, one day I was leaving the men's locker room, and the membership director said, hi, Kevin, can I see you in my office for a second? I'm like, sure. What's up? He goes, we're wondering if we reimburse you the whole year's worth of membership, will you agree to not ever use the pool again at the Y? And I said, why? And he said, well, we've had a lot of complaints about you. It doesn't seem like you stay in your lane. Now, I knew this already, because without glasses, I can't see a thing, and so I do have kind of a diagonal way of swimming. But, being a good Catholic, I'm polite and responsible, and I try not, when I'm hitting them, I try not to hit body parts that make them uncomfortable. But I said, well, if I use the other parts of the gym, the machine parts, could I keep my membership? Oh, yeah, you just can't ever use the pool again. We thought you liked the pool specifically. I'm like, I don't like really any of this specifically. So I started doing the equipment again, and I actually will say I developed a habit, like an exercise habit. I was sort of proud of myself. And it felt good till about 50, 51, because I started noticing that my membership costs were being equaled by my physical therapy and my medical appointment costs. I remember in particular, I was in a exercise class, and I couldn't hear the instructor, and I kept thinking, like, is her voice too soft, or is the music too loud? And I would say to the people around me, can you hear her? Can you hear her? And everyone's like, yeah. So I thought, all right, well, I'll ask my doctor about it. So at my next physical, of course, I never see my doctor. I always see somebody else in the office. I couldn't find my doctor on the street if he was right in front of me. And so I get this nice, young physician, 17 or 18, cute as a button, beautiful skin and rosy cheeks. She listened very intently, and I was telling her about, like, I can't hear this particular instructor in my CrossFit class, and sometimes I can't hear my partner, Michael, but I think that's because he mumbles sometimes. And she said, well, have you thought of hearing aids? And I said, hearing aids? I don't need hearing aids. Sir, a lot of people your age get very defensive when medical professionals bring up hearing aids. And I'm like, no, I'm not defensive. I don't need hearing aids. This is not the problem. I thought you would, like, tell me I had waxy buildup or something. I didn't think I needed hearing aids. I can tell you're very upset. Why don't you think about it, and if you would like a referral to the audiologist who can do some testing and fit you with hearing aids. I'm like, yeah. And I thought, and I had to pay for that appointment. It's sort of like, I think sometimes you should be able to negotiate those kinds of things. But then it wasn't long after that I was at the physical therapist office. He was doing an assessment because I was having a little left cheek issue, which I'm actually still having right now. And he said, you've sprained your gluteus minimus. And I'm like, I've sprained my ass? And he said, yes. And I said, I am 55 years old. I have never heard of any person ever spraining their ass. I said, I didn't even know your ass was sprainable. And he said, well, anything that has a muscle, you can sprain. And I'm like, well, what do you do with a sprained butt? And he said, same thing you do with a sprained ankle. You got to stay off it. And I'm like, I'm a psychotherapist. You can't stay off your ass in my business. I sit for a living. So I said, what else can I do? And he said, well, you could come twice a week for massage and heat, and we can sort of see if we can kind of speed up the healing. So I go to this PT place that's just one big room. There's not little rooms. It's all one big room with 8 tables, and all these physical therapists with these buff, athletes, and then me laying on a table face down with some poor PT, probably drew the short straw that day, massaging my left cheek for 45 minutes before the heat gets applied, occasionally using the gun for a little dramatic effect, to get it vibrating. It was just unbelievably humiliating. But that's sort of been the story through the end of my 50s and then, now into my 60s. That when the new Y opened, the membership director said, could we use a picture of you in the online, on the web page for the grand opening as a historical member of the Y? And I said, I don't like the word. I said, the Y was built in the 1800s. I don't want to be a historical member. I said, what's wrong with the word like legacy? Like I could be a legacy member of the Y. So anyway, they took a picture. I did not realize after that week it would be turned into a giant placard that is affixed to the wall of the gym outside the men's locker room for all eternity. And it was funny. I had a student from UVM who I was seeing for therapy. I'd seen him for about a year. And anyway, his parents were in town, and the Y was just opening, and so he wanted to show the parents how beautiful this place was, which if you haven't seen it, it really is beautiful. And so they're walking around the, they're walking around the Y, and he goes, oh my God, look, that's my therapist. And his mother said, your therapist is a model? And my client, God love him, he goes, no, trust me, he is no model. He is really old. And I don't really feel really old, although I do sometimes look at a picture and sort of say, oh, something happened to you along the way. But I don't know, this age thing is really complicated. I don't think the Sisters of St. Joseph, or myself for that matter, would have ever believed that, I would in midlife rise to the fame of being the poster child for the YMCA and for exercise. But Jesus told me a long time ago, he said, Kevin, you're not going to go very straight. including swimming. And since then, I have enjoyed a rather diagonal life with symmetrical thighs. Thank you.
When I was young, I would look at the clouds and hope for the rain. When I was young, I thought the slides would never bring me sorrow. When I was young, I thought the day I thought I was done my name. When I was young, the hardest work I had was when I was young, I would wake up early in the morning. When I was young, I would climb the mountain to find out how I fall. What they see. The older I get, the less I know, and the more I true. When I was young, I didn't worry about money in my pocket. When I was young, I never thought I'd ever have to fight down and hurt.
But I did.
When I was young, I would put my heart in a cage and lock it. Talk about love, I would think about things. When I want to go, the things not exactly what they see. The bigger I get, the smaller the world, and the lesson on me. When I was young, I would talk about things I didn't understand. When I was young, I didn't know about hurting and a healing. When I was young, I thought I'd grow in a man. Now I'm grown, things aren't exactly what they seem. Think about God, and I wonder, does she think about me?
I like that I'm close to the bike path, close to the lake, close to downtown. I can walk, bike everywhere. It's a great neighborhood. It's inviting, it's warm. It's my refuge. So I wanted to share my home primarily because I needed the financial support. I probably could have afforded it, but then when you think about all the things that can happen to your home, like my furnace died last week, and you know, I want to do something besides just afford my home. I want to travel, so I said I need to find a roommate. So it's really worked well. Amy is also a teacher. She is very easygoing, really positive. She is a big game player, and I love playing games too. So it said that this program is not just about finding people to live with you if you need help, but that is a major concern, right? There's a lot of people who would like to stay in their homes, but they can't because they need assistance of some sort. I hope that when I am older and I need assistance, that I could find that same help. HomeShare is there for everyone.
I've been fighting second gear, 15 miles or so, trying to beat the angry storm. I know every town worth passing through, what good does knowing do, with no one to show it to. And I've grown tired of traveling alone, tired of traveling alone. I've grown tired of traveling alone. Won't you ride with me? I've grown tired of traveling alone, tired of traveling alone. I've grown tired of traveling alone. Won't you ride with me? Won't you ride? I quit talking to myself. Listen to the radio a long, long time ago. I damn near strangled by my appetite in Evil City on a Friday night. Couldn't even stand up. So high the street girl would leave me, sipping, singing a melody. Oh, that she just I'm tired of traveling alone, tired of traveling alone. I'm tired of traveling alone. Won't you ride with me? I'm tired of traveling alone, tired of traveling alone. I'm tired of traveling alone. Won't you ride with me? Won't you ride? I've grown tired of traveling alone, tired of traveling alone. I've grown tired of traveling alone. Won't you ride with me? I've grown tired of traveling alone, tired of traveling alone. I've grown tired of traveling alone. Won't you ride with me? Won't you ride? Won't you ride?
Took me most of the evening to realize we're on the Jumbotron. That's kind of cool. So I celebrated the 50th anniversary of my 10th birthday last week. And you might be thinking, like, thank you. Like, what an odd thing to remember, really. How would she have known that? But what I'll tell you is my 10th birthday was amazing. Now, most of my birthdays usually happen right around Easter, but this particular birthday fell on Easter. And so we all gathered at my grandparents' house, and we ate food, and we had cake, and we sang. And when we were all done, we went outside to play the annual game of Resurrection Jesus Bocce. Trust me, it's definitely a thing. And it was just a great day. My grandparents had this sort of tiered backyard. So the top tier, the first tier, was where you would park. And then you'd go down a little slope. And then there'd be a little area where there's a garden and a nice table that you could sit at. And then down one more slope, there was a place that we called the pit. And the pit was just this giant rectangular area that was perfectly flat with grass, and it was the most amazing bocce court. The only flaw was in one corner there was this giant walnut tree. This tree was so big that it took 4 people with their arms stretched out and the tips of their fingers touching to get around the base of it. It shot up into the air 100 feet, well into that top tier of the driveway. In the summertime, people would come from the neighborhood and they'd sit under the tree to get a little bit of relief from the heat, and kids would come and they would climb and they would swing on the branches, and at the very right season, I would collect walnuts so I could pelt them at the boys as they rode their bicycles down the street. This tree was a part of our family. And so after Resurrection Bocce was over, the conversation started that had been picked up from months earlier about this one branch that was hanging over the house. And how were we going to get this one branch down? And my father and my uncle decide today is the day. That branch is coming down. Now, you have to know a little bit about my father and my uncle. They are perfectly aligned. My uncle was this very smart, he was the head of an advertising agency, had very big, bold ideas, but no mechanical inclination whatsoever. My father, on the other hand, was very mechanically inclined, but his ideas kind of bordered on brilliance and then sometimes would tip over into ridiculously dangerous. So the two of them together, I will tell you, have had many escapades prior to this one, like the time that we took a camping trip up in Canada, and they decided they were going to take the door off the bathroom so they could tow it behind the boat and stand on it. This door was so heavy that when it sunk, it actually sunk the boat with it. And so for the next 2 weeks of our vacation, we had to pee behind this little curtain that we had to string where the door used to be. On this very same vacation, my cousin got a fishing hook in his hand, and my grandfather was going to remove it and kind of had to dig in there a little bit surgically. Now, he was a doctor and was very well qualified. My uncle and my father decided they were going to help. And so what they did is, my father was going to stand on a ladder and hold a lamp over the surgical area, and my uncle was going to stand at the bottom of the ladder holding a martini. And so my uncle loses his balance, my father falls off the ladder, hits the lamp, hits my uncle, and by the end of the afternoon, both of them now also need stitches. I fondly refer to this trip as the Stitcherama. So these two titans of industry are going to take this branch down. Nobody in my family thinks this is a good idea, but they're undaunted. And the reason they're undaunted is if you've spent any time with my family or any Italian family, there's a phrase that comes up when you can't quite do something, but you're going to try and you're not willing to admit that you can't do it. And the phrase is, I got it. I got it. Are you sure I got it? And so my uncle says, I got it. And there's nothing that's going to dissuade them from this. Now, the other phrase that is very familiar in my family, which usually comes after you think you got something and you don't got it, is the phrase, I got a guy. You got a guy? I got a guy. And this is the phrase that you use when something has gone wrong with the got it, and now you need to call in the professional. So here's the plan. My father is going to scale up the tree with these 2 rusty spikes that he's found at the dump strapped to his boots, and a piece of rope that he's going to wrap around the tree, and he's going to kind of just punch, punch, skip, punch, punch, skip. And so we're watching this unfold, and he makes it about 1/3 of the way up the tree until one of his spikes gets caught in the tree. And so he manages to pull his leg out, but now he's kind of dangling there with one spike with the rope around the tree. And it's sort of dangerous. And it's not that my family doesn't care that this is dangerous. We do, we're worried, but we also can't miss the opportunity to scream up to him, "Hoist by your own petard." That was one of his favorite phrases. And he screams back down, "Get the big ladder." Now, why we didn't start with the big ladder is still a mystery to this day, but my uncle gets the big ladder, he puts the big ladder up to the walnut tree, and it's just almost close enough for my dad to reach. So he knows he's gonna have to jump down and let go of the rope to land on the ladder. And he jumps down, and he lets go of the rope, and he lands on the ladder, which then he falls to the ground, and the ladder falls on top of him. He's fine. And you would think this would be enough to say, let's get the guy. But no. There's a crowd that's now formed in the pit. Neighbors have started to come over. They've unfolded those silver chairs, you know, the kind that has that like scratchy plastic frayed webbing on the bottom that just rips the bottom of your thighs when you sit down. And so there's like lines of people that are now watching this. One of the people that's watching this is Mr. Mamarata. Mr. Mamarata is our next door neighbor. He's a short, stocky guy, and he's got arms like Popeye. He's got the strongest arms you've ever seen. And the reason for this is because he's a stone cutter. He's actually the guy that makes every single gravestone in our community. And so Mr. Mamarata, I think because he's a gravestone guy and he spends a lot of time with the bereaved, is uncharacteristically very quiet for an Italian man. And so he just really unassumingly says, you know, I got a guy. But my father and my uncle are still solidly into the I got it part of the operation. So they're not listening. So the next plan is they're going to take a brick and wrap a rope around the bottom of it. And my father's going to climb back up the ladder, throw the rope over the branch. The brick will bring the rope down. Once the rope comes down, they're going to tie it around my cousin Christopher. And they're going to hoist him up to the branch, and then he will chop the limb down. At this point, my mother and my aunt are looking at this like, oh my goodness, can we please stop this nonsense? But my father gets the ladder, my uncle holds it, he climbs up, he grabs the brick, he throws it over, and miraculously on the first try, it actually goes over the branch. And the crowd just goes wild. And so we realize it goes over the branch again. And it goes over the branch again, and it goes over a branch the third time. So now there's the tree with the spike, this brick with a rope, and we are still no closer to cutting this down. And finally, at this point, my aunt and my mother look at Mr. Mamarata and say, call the guy. Goes across the street, comes back a few minutes later, and half an hour later, this truck with a bucket shows up. And a big sign on the side of it that says, Lilco, Long Island Lighting Company. As it turns out, you can just call the electric company and they'll come cut any branch that's hanging anywhere near a power line, but not usually on Easter Sunday. And so it becomes pretty clear that Mr. Mamarata knows this guy, because when he gets out of the truck, he shakes his hand and he puts his other hand on his shoulder and he says, how you doing? And the guy says, I'm doing okay. Find out later that his mom had died a month earlier and Mr. Mamarata gave him the gravestone for nothing, which is why he's showing up on Easter Sunday. And so he straps on the little thing, throws his chainsaw on the bucket, jumps into the bucket, pushes the button, goes up. 10 minutes later, that branch comes down. It's done. And he comes back down in the bucket, and my mom looks at him, and he says, it's her birthday. And he looks down at me, he's like, it's your birthday? He's like, you want to ride? And so I get in that bucket. And he pushes the button, and I go up higher than I've ever been. And I peer out over the side, and I can see the neighbors and my family, and they're smiling and laughing and waving. And I just remember thinking, I am loved. This is the best birthday ever. So last week, I'm coming up on this big birthday, and everybody's asking me, what do you want to do? This is a big one. You've got to do something really memorable. And I'm not feeling all that well, and I'm a little bit overwhelmed, and so I decide, you know, we're just going to kind of do this low-key thing. And so I get up in the morning, I go to the bathroom, and I go to put my glasses on, and they fall off my head into the toilet bowl. And I watch them as they just kind of swirl down the toilet. Oh, in the open position, like swirl down the toilet. I was like, that's kind of amazing. Welcome to your 60s. And I was like, all right, I know I have to deal with this, but I'm not going to deal with it now. And I go downstairs, and the person who's just one of the most important people in my life has created this video montage of people wishing me a happy birthday. And friends from all over the country have these wonderful wishes, and they're singing, and I'm watching this thing, and I'm just weeping into my coffee, and I feel loved. And I go back upstairs, and I almost go to the bathroom, and then I remember, no, I got to deal with these glasses. And so I pull out my phone, and I start to call the plumber, and this wave comes over me, and then I think, I got this. And I go and I get my tools, and I come back, and I start to take apart the toilet. First, I tried with the little coat hanger thing, maybe I can fish it out, but it's way too far down. And then I take the back of the tank off, but it's still too far down, and it's kind of underneath. So over the course of the day, I'm taking apart the toilet. And people are coming over, my mom comes over to wish me a happy birthday, and I'm getting flowers, and friends are calling, and I'm just surrounded by love and shit. And by the end of the day, I've taken apart the toilet. And I get the glasses, and I put them in some hot soapy water, and I put the toilet back together, and I take a moment to just sit on the bathroom floor, kind of silent reflection, if you will. And I realize that yes, most of my life is in the rearview mirror. And I'm okay with that, because I just took apart the toilet. I got this. And if I don't got this, I got a guy. I got a bunch of guys. I got a bunch of gals. I have people all over the country that are at the ready to swoop in and lift me up and point out what's really important. HomeShare, happy 30th anniversary of your 10th birthday, and thank you for being an organization that is dedicated to lifting us up.
Not allowed to look at Sue. Hey, this song was written by somebody in our audience. That's all I'm saying. John Daly. We will try not to mess it up. If we mess it up, we got a guy. Let's fix you and me. Every broken thing we can see, all the pain and all the misery. Come on, let's start tomorrow. Let's build you and me a towering impossibility, a thing of art, a thing of beauty we can show. If it don't matter if it's you or yeah, we don't have to wait until we're told. Let's fix it now before the iron's cold. We'll fix it once, we'll fix it thrice, as many times till it stays nice. And wondrous world this would be. Let's fix it, you and me. If all you see is what cannot be done, you surely miss out on the joyous fun. So come with me and we'll reject no one. I promise you this ain't no joke. Let's pull together all the folk and work on life's mystery. Let's fix it, you and me.
Incredible, everyone. These folks are so amazing. Can I get that mic? Can you hear me? Great. So I want to just bring the band and the storytellers back up on the stage and give them a huge round of applause. Going to get a picture of you guys. Karen, hi. Do you want us to come here? Is that easier for you? Let's make it as hard as we can. Go back. So the night isn't over yet, but before we break and leave our audience, I want to thank the staff of HomeShare, Amy and Joyce and Kathy, who are here tonight, and Aaron, who's back at the office in case people were lost or needed directions or couldn't get online. So I really want to thank the staff, our board members who are here tonight, our volunteers who are here tonight. So please, a round of applause for everybody who made tonight possible. So we are going to have a little bit of an after party out in the bar area. If you want to join us, stick around. We've got some sparkling beverage, and we're going to make a toast to HomeShare, or you can make individual toasts to each other. And we've got some incredible cupcakes out there. And your hardest decision of the evening is going to be which of the 4 flavors you're going to choose. So I want to thank you all for being here tonight and celebrating with us 40 years. We can't wait to get started on the next 40 years. So thank you all for coming.